This year was a little bit different than the past two exercise we've had. We've been building up each year. First year was basically just ham radio operators, and we just made up some messages, so to speak. And the second year, we kind of brought in some damage assessment teams, and they were able to kind of walk around and look at damage pictures and try to formulate what they see and put it in writing. But this year we kind of did a little bit different. We wanted everyone to either make up their own messages, or they could ask for pictures, whichever would work. But the main emphasis this year was working on the ICS 213 general message form, start working with a standard of how to fill that form out so that everybody can follow along, and also working on the 309 radio log and trying to work that in. And then also utilizing the message identifiers. So I know that, so this year there was quite a few wrenches that maybe caused some things to tilt the cart, or cause the cart to tilt over. So, but that's why we do exercises, to find out where we need to work on, and so forth. I also want to remind you that year, the third Thursday of October, which is the Great American Shakeout, the Saturday following that Thursday is the 19th of October. So next year, citywide EmComm be on the 9th of October 2024. So that's something for each of the districts and each of the neighborhoods to kind of plan out 2024 training, communication trainings and stuff with the neighborhoods to start planning for that date. So that's October 19th, 2024. Same time period, unless the city of Eugene EOC, they may want to add some different elements to it, which would be great. So, and maybe that time may be stretched a little bit if we want to do something extra. But if so, I'm sure the city will have some discussion on that. And it gives us a whole year to do some planning. But I hope people had fun today, just getting into using the radios and trying to nail down the 213 and the radio log today. So I guess first off, I'll just throw it out there for anybody have any comments, what they thought was how they did, or problems that they did. So I'll just start it off. Well, let's start with the EOC. Sarah, you on my picture, you're at the top left. So we'll just start with there, Sarah, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I did raise my hand just a second ago when you had suggested about the exercise next year. We're actually, well, I'm waiting for the county to get the paperwork back, but we're participating in what's called Iron Ore. It's basically a new rebranded Cascadia Rising. So it's a state level exercise, kind of running through a Cascadia level scenario. And I was actually thinking about it today when working with Matt about maybe designing some kind of EmComm and EOC into the exercise that we're designing for Iron Ore. I wish they wouldn't have changed the name because it sounds really goofy. But as far as that goes, so that'll be next year. I think it's the same week as the shakeout, but I could be mistaken. So the state's doing, I think, a full week exercise. We're just going to participate for probably 1 or 2 days. So the way the exercise went today, I don't see Matt on. But I'm a newbie, so I was just learning. He was kind of walking me through how the typical report out will go. It was really difficult because I was kind of getting coached as we were hearing things. And, writing things in all caps and stuff takes a little bit of time. So it would be nice to slow down. I also think if we had a chance to get together and walk through a couple of the message forms, so there's a standardized way of reporting out, because some folks were reporting out kind of out of order, and it made it a little bit difficult to be able to take down notes. I know Matt had a couple of things, but I can't remember them off the top of my head. But the biggest thing for both of us was to slow down. He had suggested, as you're reading it, to follow your finger along the letters, and that could help you slow down, one, and two, give you an idea of how it would be just writing it out. I really like that suggestion. The other thing was, it sounded like folks were missing a lot of the message numbers. So being able to record those accurately was kind of difficult. What else was there? There was something else. Yeah, I think more than anything, just the structure wasn't there. And that made it really hard, because you go, even if they said box 2 or box 3, they would be listing stuff that goes in box 4. So Matt was like, no, it goes here. And we were trying to piece things back together. I felt that the scenarios were really realistic. The thing which I'm going to assume most folks know, but nothing that was reported out would have been high enough if this was like a Cascadia level event. So it's basically just tracking of things going on. There was no response that could go out to those low level, like a house fire or a pinned individual. That's really where the CERT teams in the neighborhoods are to be able to execute their expertise. But again, that is in something high, like impact, like Cascadia. Does anyone have any questions about the radio traffic or what we went through here?
Well, I like to reply. You spoke about that some of the different folks that were sending messages in, they were sending things out of order. And you recommend that we have like a session where we kind of go through and everybody be on the same page of how to send a 213. And we kind of did that last Wednesday evening. We had a Zoom meeting. Unfortunately, we didn't have everybody that was participated today on that training session. And we went through how to go through and send structure, and also how to log in on your radio log showing the reception of a message, say for a neighborhood ham, how they would receive a message from a radio team leader within a neighborhood, and how they would log that reception in on their radio log, and then how they would also log in on the radio log their transmission to the district net control. So we had that training last Wednesday, but not everybody was present today on that training. So I don't know if we should maybe have multiple trainings to go over the same things, but also Mike did record those sessions, I do believe, and those recordings are on the EugeneEmComm.org page that people could look at as well. But I agree. We're trying to write down. And we also stressed when we did the training that don't proceed to the next block until you receive a reply of either copy or I copy, and then go to the next block. Just don't go willy-nilly reading on down through the message. Wait until you get a reply that the receiver copied. And that was stressed in that training as well. But we're trying to develop a standardization structure of sending, so that anybody on the other end, if you say block 2 they can find block 2, and then they write in what is mentioned on the radio. And when they say block 3, they write in that. So I'm trying to get that structure down on that.
Oh, the last
Anybody else
thing
have-
was a couple of last thing from the EOC, a couple of folks missed the this is an exercise. I think it's extremely important, especially since we're operating out of the EOC. I don't want to get a phone call because I had panicked a little bit because the first one they didn't say this is an exercise, and I heard the fire radios going off, and I was like, oh no. So if we could just make sure that that happens, that would be really helpful. And that was the last thing. Okay, I'm done.
That's true, and it was the same thing for our in the north. So a lot of them through they didn't have exercise. This is an exercise preference in block 7, and ending of block 7, and that was also stressed last Wednesday evening as well. And that comes from the neighborhood damage assessment team, radio team leader as well. They start the ball rolling, and they need to put that in there. And we've told everybody, all the hams that relay up, do not change the 213. It goes as the originator sent it. We're not going to go through and proofread it and go through and be like an editor. It goes as said. So okay, we got I got Gary's hand, I got Susan's hand, Charles's hand, and I got Nancy's hand. I don't know who was up first. Let's go from my left to right, I guess. So let's go with Susan.
Hi. So the one thing I noticed as I was writing down the messages coming into the Northeast Net was when we were needing to transmit to EOC, we had a ham radio who was supposed to give us the messages, went over us to EOC and was giving their messages. And so we were then unable to send emergency messages because they were giving messages directly to EOC instead of going through the chain of command, so to speak, by giving them to us, and then we can sort of triage and get those emergency messages from all the different neighborhoods to EOC. But it was tying up EOC, and that's the big thing, is having enough people there at EOC to take all these messages that are going to be coming into you, not just from Northeast neighbors, but from Southeast 1 and 2 and Bethel and everyone else. And so I don't know if you guys have a game plan, but also for you at EOC to say to someone, to recognize that, okay, you need to contact Northeast Net and give them this information, not us, to free up traffic to you. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Thanks, Susan. Yeah, that's something that I wasn't on the link to the EOC, so I really wasn't listening there. I was on the downlink to the neighborhoods. But I just kind of reviewed the lesson plan, or not the lesson plan, but the exercise plan for the day. And I don't recall, I even have a timeline, and use the EOC is supposed to notify the district nets to say, okay, we're starting district nets, contact your neighborhood hams and your neighborhoods to start gathering radio traffic from their neighborhoods and pass it to the EOC. And I didn't get anything from the Jim, which was the EOC link, telling me to contact my neighborhood hams and neighborhood damage assessment teams to start passing traffic up that needs to go to the EOC. So I think we kind of missed that timeline. I don't know if maybe I wasn't listening, maybe others heard that as well, but yes, the EOC's got to take charge of the net, and so hopefully in the future we'll have more personnel to help out that area. Let's go next to Gary. It was in line that I see at the top. I don't hear you. Oh, there you
I really appreciated this exercise. The training on Wednesday was wonderful. Showed every step from the damage assessment team to the radio team leader, and then on up, the neighborhood ham and then the district net control up to the ELC. That was really great, showing how the message, most of the contents of the message 213 doesn't change. I received 8 messages. I was surprised that Jefferson West Side was involved, but I got a couple of messages from them. And then
awesome.
I got 4 messages from Fan, and I got 2 messages from Whitaker. And I was able to prioritize those. I ended up sending in 3 emergency and 1 priority message to Matt.
Awesome.
And yeah, I found it very tedious to write all this stuff. And 100 years from now, we'll just be using our smartphones for this, I'm sure, over RF somehow. Well, I mean, over, anyway, 2 meter. So, yeah, I found it very useful, and it was great working with Chuck and with, I'm sorry, I have to look up the names here. Chuck. And okay. Just anyway, it was great working with everybody. When Joanna got a couple messages from Megan, of course she's here at the house, and so she actually Xeroxed her forms, and I crossed out her ID, her message ID, and wrote in my own, and crossed out her name, the signature, and wrote in my own, and so that made that easy. But yeah, the people who did not attend the training, they had no clue what they should be doing. Megan was doing what she did last year, and it was very unstructured. But I feel like we have the basic part of our system down. Thanks.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, Garrett, no, George was in, I think George was in the Jefferson West Side. And so it was great to have him there. And so we're going to try to build up Jefferson West Side neighborhood as well. And we'll get things going there as well. And Jefferson West Side has 2 other hams that we want to bring in on board as well.
Yeah,
so
Garrett,
thank you, Gary, on that.
Garrett was the one who relayed messages to me. Thanks, Garrett.
Oh, okay, Garrett. Good job. Okay, let's go to Charlesy. Charlesy is with the River Road Ready Northwest, and she was new this year as well with the damage assessment team, and she was working with Matt Albertson, which was the River Road net control. Charlesy.
Hi, so thank you very much for this exercise. We are brand spanking new. I think we're only like a week and a half old, our DAT. And so there have been some just getting ready glitches and so on going on. I relied really heavily on the written instructions that were sent to me and the timeline and so on. I realize now that I made some assumptions that weren't clear and probably not accurate in terms of how this procedure would play out. I only found out about the training that was on Wednesday. I think it was the day before. So I had to rely on the recording, which was helpful. But again, there were certain instructions maybe this year that were different from the handout materials. And so there's some last minute adjustments. Just going through the process, even though it wasn't perfect, was very helpful. I feel like we're more prepared for next time. We got loud and clear the instruction to read slowly and did some practicing of that. And I think that part we did quite well. We would really benefit, I think, between now and the next formal exercise to work with Matt Albertson on some just exercises talking to the ham and figuring out how best to communicate. We had some communication glitches this week where we couldn't hear one another. So I have to confess, I gave Matt hard copies of what we were going to relay to him by radio because we didn't know if that problem would happen again today. So we know that in an emergency, we wouldn't have that luxury probably, but in any case, it's all a learning experience. We relied heavily on tutoring from Andy along the way, and I really appreciate that, writing and figuring out if we're interpreting things correctly. And I would just say that things, especially to the new ear, can be interpreted maybe different ways. So those of you who are used to this may find it very obvious what is meant, but it isn't necessarily what is obvious to a newcomer. Do you have anything, Risha, you want to add?
No, but thank you for the exercise. And I think going slow, and if there's any way to streamline some of the forms and all that, it's just a lot. I heard from the ham operators, there's a lot of information to write down. If there's any way to streamline that, that might be helpful for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. I'm not sure I understand about the streamlining of the forms. They're designed, their design, I guess, is part of the incident command system, the ICS system, and those forms, general message forms, are used through the FEMA organization. So, and we kind of, when there's a disaster and we're utilized, we fit into that incident command system, which is part of the national incident management system as well. So we try to be standardized along with all the other emergency type responders as they work in that system on that. But anyway, Nancy is next. I see a hand up here, and Nancy, and I can never get her last name. She'll have to say it, but she's in the Fairmont neighborhood district, which is in Southeast District 3. Nancy.
Right, and so today I served as the Southeast 3 district ham, and Karen Dunn, who was here with me today listening on this call, served as our Fairmont neighbors net control. And Nikki Johnson, who is not on this call right now, served as the net control for the Suna neighborhood next to us. And I would say that especially for myself and for Karen, this was our first time in either of these roles. So this was challenging. So it was a very valuable exercise. We learned a lot. And I think that the hardest part for me was sort of being alone and trying to field the calls from 2 different neighborhoods. And ideally, I would have 4 different neighborhoods calling these in. So I saw very importantly why I would want a scribe to help, because I would get everything on the 213, but then the 309, because I had felt this pressure to get these messages into the EOC, I would realize I was sort of scribbling on the 309 and cleaning it up later. But I had one question, because Sierra kind of brought this up, was really, I think, a place where I need to grow is my understanding of priority. In my head, I saw that if there was some significant issue that could cause great harm, or people's lives were at risk, that those would come to the top of my list. And when when Sierra said that none of these messages today really rose to that day one major event priority, I guess I need some clarification on that. I received 7 messages today, and one of them I chose not to send on. It was a tree blocking a road, and I figured go around the block. It'll work out. It didn't stop anybody from doing anything. However, when I had a gas leak that couldn't be shut off, and the smell of gas was obvious, that to me could lead to an explosion and take out a lot of lives. So I saw that as really significant. I saw anytime there was a body pinned in a car and the person's unconscious, that they needed help. If those are things that I wouldn't be reporting, I just kind of need to know that I would want to save that for day 2 or day 3. So it'll take time, but I will learn that. I just would put that out there as something that at least some of us need more education on.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Nancy. I want to direct folks' attention to the resource guide. And on the resource guide, this is it's a figure 6-1, which is on page 24 of the resource guide. It is a flow chart showing how the messages are classified. And it's just like just a plain old flow chart. Does this happen? Yes or no? And it tells you how it would be classified as either emergency, priority, or routine. Now, this chart on the figures, or the figure 6-1 on page 24, it was that chart was put in by the city EOC back in August of 2021 when we were putting this guide together. So this is the standard there, and Sierra may want to change that as we were in the process of going through and kind of doing changing some items in it, changing some verbiage, some wordage from scribe to recorder, and some other things. So we're looking at that, but Sarah may want to look at that over to see if there's anything she might want to change on that. But as a standard, that's what we are going by now. And the district net controls are the ones that determine what the priority of a message is, according to the guide on that. But it's great. I'm glad that you were able to participate. And as for Northeast District, we were talking today that maybe that we as a district would want to quarter kind of do something like this district-wide for training purposes. And we also had a discussion that we've got to get more volunteers to come and help, because the neighborhood ham needs to have at least 2 radio operators, one for the FRS or /GMRS side, and a recorder, and also the ham radio to the district net control needs a recorder. The same thing for the district nets, Gary and yourself. Each of you need a recorder to help you, and also to have another radio operator that will be speaking downlink, so to speak. So bodies are needed, and but that's a struggle that we have to go through to try to get volunteers. I don't see any other hands. Oh, there's Sierra's got a hand up.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. I think it was Nancy that was just asking a minute ago. Really, truly, I'm just trying to set the stage about something realistic in like a major incident, right? So even though the guidance says, yes, this is a priority message, I don't know how it was developed, and I haven't reviewed the guidance, to be honest. You are correct. Like a live gas line is something that is a pretty high priority. But in the instance that we are in a kind of a moderate incident, hopefully you're not on your ham. Hopefully your phones work and you're calling dispatch to report that, right? So the utilities can be notified and shut off gas in that area. But in a major incident, I mean, I'm just trying to set the reality of it and kind of keep it honest as community members and as certs and radio folks, that that a lot of those calls, I didn't, like I said, didn't hear anything that was major. Even though there is a risk, like the resources definitely are not enough to take care of every single neighborhood and every single place, because if that gas line's broken, it's likely that there are other neighborhoods with the same problem. And you're really triaging, right? So where do the most amount of people live? And that's going to be the priority, right? Like the greatest amount of good for the most amount of people. I know Charles, he's experienced my way of talking about this stuff, and it is kind of rough, but it is also honesty, and I want to keep it as realistic as possible, because when something happens, I want you all to know that you've been told that it is hard for us. I mean, we are a very, although we have a lot of resources, we have a lot of folks that live in our city, right? So I didn't mean to be harsh about it, but I was just being realistic. And hopefully that didn't trash your exercise, Andy. I didn't mean to if I did.
No. Thank you, Sierra. Anybody else have any comments or questions or oh, by the ways? Really? Oh, awesome. I know everybody wants to get and watch the football games. So do I.
Here's a quick comment. Just so as far as the sorting by priority, that's supposed to happen at the district ham level, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yes.
people below that feed everything up there that seems reasonable.
That's right.
And don't hold them back at that point.
Right. Neighborhood ham and all the way down to the neighborhood damage assessment teams, they just throw it. They just radio it up, and it all goes to the district net control, and they take all that traffic and they determine by what we have now, the standard, that figure 6-1, how that message is prioritized. And so yes, so that's how that goes. Garrett. And I see Charles's got a hand up. Garrett, go ahead.
I just wanted to say a couple of things. One was I learned a lot from doing this. It's my first actual practical involvement. I've been listening to the EmComm net, but and I really thank Gary for talking me through this stuff, including some equipment problems. I think it would be helpful next time we schedule an exercise like this to have an intro page on the web page that says, if you want to take part in the exercise, do the following things. I ended up, out there with my radio on, and I heard Gary broadcasting, but I didn't know whether I was supposed to call him or he was supposed to call me. So finally, I did call him, and I think we got through the forms, and I learned a whole lot about it. So it was an excellent exercise, but I think a little intro on the webpage would help a lot.
Okay, thank you. Charlesy, your hand's up.
Yes, I wanted to reiterate that just this discussion alone is really, really helpful in terms of understanding how different people's perceptions are. The comment that Sierra made about certain things that might seem urgent up close, maybe we could call in like a down power line, which was one of the examples we used. But in a real life situation, we don't have the option of calling into eWeb or the utilities. We have to go through this radio command. We're counting on people up the chain to alert whomever needs to know it. It seems to me an arcing and smoking power line on the ground that is prohibiting through traffic of any kind is pretty urgent. But it may not, I don't know where it fits on that, on the resource guide prioritization list. So under these urgent circumstances, it would seem like maybe that prioritization would shift. So we'll learn as we participate in more of these. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Charles. And as before, I want to go to Lena next and then Gary. And as we discussed before, for this for Sierra as well, with prior emergency management managers that we had a question come up about when everything hits the fan, and we're on the air and we're actually working, there could be a chance where communication, say from Springfield or Junction City, will come to our net because they are unable to get through either to their local EOC. And so we raised that question, what are we to do? And so we were told, well, you take that traffic from, if they're outside of the city, and pass it on, and the EOC then will take that and get to the appropriate city management for whether it's Junction City or whatever that's around that. And so so something like that may happen. And so and when it does hit the fan, it's not this will not be all so sterilized as it is so much as it is now when we do our exercise. It will probably be chaotic and kind of messy. But anyway, let me go to Lena real quick.
Oh, hi. Well, listening to this, I'm realizing that this really seems to be a one-way flow of traffic. And in reality, in situations, people like to have information. So what I'm hearing is like, we're passing this information on. We're hoping it's going to go to the EOC. Maybe something will be done, maybe not. Most likely, nothing's going to, we may not even get information back if that's going to be addressed or not addressed. And, you know, in a matter of life and limb, or a lot of people aren't going to stomach just standing around watching somebody die. Perhaps some of our radio communications and maybe our CERT efforts can be utilized more locally, neighborhood by neighborhood, to assist with search and rescue. You know, maybe a medical team, maybe a team that can help, you know, clear a road, chainsaw, whatever, to be able to get that assistance locally so that we're not just watching people die. And I think that's human nature, that people are going to pitch in and do what they need to do to help each other. So I'm just kind of curious if there's any information flowing back from the EOC, or, you know, to say this has been called in, you could anticipate 5 hours or 6 hours, somebody might be there to assist. Or if that help is never coming, you know, what are our options to do something different?
You want me to take it, Andy?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm really operating under the everything has hit the fan, Cascadia level 9.0 earthquake, everything is gone. If we're using ham radio, that's the case. We're not going to use ham for a neighborhood fire. We're not going to use ham if communications are up. So the expectation is that these are not being recorded in your neighborhoods. These are 911 calls, right? When I say dispatch, I mean 911. So if you see a live power line on the ground arcing and smoking, that's a call to 911, because our normal systems, our normal chains are still going. When it's a hit the fan type of scenario, yes, it's very likely that neighbors will be taking care of neighbors. It's just, we don't have enough resources, responders, to take care of every single neighborhood and every single person. And even if the resources we do have, it's going to go towards the greatest amount of people that are going to do the greatest amount of good because of the small resources, or it'll go to folks that are our most vulnerable. So I think there was one that had a person that was immobile or unable to move or something. I think it was needed evacuation, but had mobility issues. Those are the folks that we will focus on if we do have extra resources. So that those that are able-bodied, those neighbors that can take care of neighbors in a Cascadia situation, yes. But a normal incident, like oh, sorry, you're muted.
Oh, I wasn't talking about normal. I was talking about situation. I was just wondering how much of our efforts as a radio team, I can see getting the information so that people higher up know what's happening on the ground. That's awesome. You can get an overview picture. But the practicality of, you know, if we as neighborhoods and neighbors have, you know, maybe medical teams, using our communication skills to be able to communicate with each other more within our local area, and how much, do we want to spend any time and energy developing that type of response as well. Just a thought.
Yeah, I think the CERT program is really what takes care of that. So we start to identify our neighborhood groups and the ones that are neighboring to you. Okay, they have a really strong medical team, so we can send that medical team. Or I guess that's the best scenario when you're talking medical. As far as like search and rescue, I think it'd be about the same, right? So depending on the strength and the numbers of your neighborhood CERT teams, that's really what's going to make or break the success of the response in that community. That's why I put so much of emphasis and effort into kind of beefing up our CERT program since I've been here, because I know those are going to be the people taking care of the community when I'm stuck here at the EOC taking care of the big 30,000-foot view issues, right? How are we getting power back on? How are we clearing roads so we can get resources into our area? Because what will happen in Cascadia is islanding. So things will break down, bridges will break down, and we'll be kind of stranded on these different islands in the state of Oregon. And there was a Department of Health and Human Services that really broke that down well. And I think I'm getting too far into the weeds here, but I think that if you can kind of understand the issues that are greater, right, that's where we really focus in at the EOC, and it is good for tracking. But I do want to be clear that if 911 is available, that is how you report. Please don't get on your ham radios to report things like that in an emergency, like the down power line. All right, I'm done.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sierra, for that. No, it's good to it's encouraging to see that the support for beefing up, like you said, the CERT program. And there's nothing wrong with refreshing people's memory that yes, we will be islands all over the place. And yes, thank you, Sarah, for that. And Gary, I think, is next, and then Charles C.
Oh, I just thought one of the messages was kind of interesting. Is reservoir is secure. Reservoir is secure. I guess that means the city won't be taking it out. That's all.
Okay.
Well, that was not a damage report. That was just a report that shouldn't have been relayed probably.
Oh, okay.
Since they gathered on the reservoir and I wasn't able to join them up there to get on where they were, I went around it and did my only message as, well, you're all secure up there. I see no crumbling or structural cracks, so you can continue meeting on the reservoir.
Right. Charles.
Hi. So I'm hearing such different assumptions, I think, from where Sierra's coming from, as opposed to where I felt this exercise was designed for. My understanding in a Cascadia event of that magnitude is the chances of us having 911 access is probably nil. So why are we even talking about that? And the other is, if we are getting ready for the Cascadia event, if that's the assumption walking into this exercise, it probably needs to be designed differently so that we have a clearer understanding of what things would be a priority. And if a fallen live wire is not, and we're going to have to figure out ways of just coping with that safely, that's a whole different exercise. And I think it has value, but it's at odds with what I feel this exercise was about, which was more practicing how to use the radios. But I'm really hearing you, Sierra, and it just seems like a different set of assumptions. This puts so much more of the burden on the neighbors, trained and untrained, clued in and not clued in, prepared or not prepared, and that is a whole different set of exercises we need to look at. Thank you.
Okay, you want to say anything, Sierra? If not, we can go to Craig.
No, I don't want to break your exercise any further, but no, I think the intention, Charles C is correct. The intention is just to get folks working on the radios and seeing how it's going. But she's right. I mean, next year will be a little more realistic because we'll have the state components to that. So more to come.
Well, just a refresher that 2019 ice storm in the South Hills knocked everybody out. There was no radio, no TV, no phone, no electric, and everything. And so the emergency manager came to me, being my first month, I think, or whatever it was, as the steering chair, says, you need to develop a emergency communication system for Eugene. So that's how this all came to be, birthed, was from that ice storm. So that's how that ended. But anyway, Craig, go ahead.
Yeah, just to point out, we're kind of focused on the communication plan because it's a communication exercise, but that's not the entirety of the response plan. Like, the response plan probably would say there's some distributed decision making. It's not totally everything goes to one point and they make all the decisions. If it's a giant thing, the whole city's screwed up, like people were saying, like, oh, let's organize some people and saw these trees out of the street, and let's organize the trained medical people to help people. So there's got to be some distributed decision making, which isn't really the focus of this particular exercise. I think that's part of it. And then the other thing is, I think everyone's saying that, yeah, absolutely, at the neighborhood level, you do report the power lines are down, and you do report the gas leaks. And it's a higher level where that gets filtered out. It's not the originator that says, I'm not going to report this potentially fatal thing. It's somebody above that, is my understanding anyway. That's all.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Oh, here's Matt. Matt Dillon's here. All right, Matt, do you have any comments?
Well, yeah. Sorry to be late. Some IT problem there, but we got it resolved. I just want to say a nice thank you to those folks that interacted with me at the EOC this morning and responding to helpful suggestions I gave and making the messages easier to handle. So thanks for your kind consideration and patience with me. I don't do this every day either. So we all get sharpened up as we we practice and such. So that's my 2 cents worth at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Anybody else have any comments? All right. Well, I want to encourage each of the districts and neighborhoods to kind of start now thinking about your training plan for 2024 and building up, and with the knowledge and what training you've had now for next year's exercise. I know it's mentioned that maybe I think Sierra mentioned that maybe some additional training. Maybe we can work together with her to, I don't know if we could do training like this, like we did on the Wednesday, or we could do in-person training, maybe down at Second and Chambers at the classrooms down there, if that would work better. We could do something like that to where everybody has a 213 or something, and we can fill them out, and I don't know, just I'm brainstorming. But anyway, so kind of start getting with your teams and planning training sessions for 2024, and also have fun with it. I mean, enjoy the training, make it fun. You could also have a message. I didn't put it in today, but you could have a message. I have one in one of my training sessions where Godzilla attacks them all. So but it's something just fun. But it gives some little fun and training on the radio as well. So Thea's got her hand up. Let's see, Thea, go ahead. You're muted right now.
Thea Bell with Friendly
We
Area.
can't hear you.
One of our teams said today that the most fun they had in any of these drills, and I think they've been in all of them, is the one where we had the yard signs and we went out and scouted for them. And she said that was actually really fun. So that was under a prior EOC regime. Are the yard signs available next year at all?
Yard signs are available. We have those, and we can also do the pictures in an envelope. But we'll get with Sierra and stuff and other steering management, and we'll figure out what we want to do for October 19th, 2024. So how we
Okay.
proceed. Yeah, the yard sign was good. That's because of the damage assessment teams actually had to walk around and find the signs and then write down what they see. Yeah. Any
Thank
other
you.
comments before we go?
I just want to reiterate what everybody's kind of been saying. Thank you so much for participating. I was excited to see the number of folks that are interested, and it means a lot, and it kind of reinforces my drive to get out to the community and try and get folks not recruited, because that sounds intense, but at least give them the education about what we're doing and how to prepare and how they can participate if they're interested. It means a lot that you're all here on a Saturday during a Duck game. I can't believe it. So thank you all so much.
Hey, if you took some pictures of your crew, kind of send those to Tracy Bear. And maybe, I don't know, Sierra can maybe use some of those. I don't know if she wants to send to OEM. It's sort of with Great American Shakeout. I don't know. But anyway, can do that. Also, Sierra, some folks asked me about the paperwork. I don't know if you want any of the paperwork from today, or I know that if it hits the fan real thing, you'll want the paperwork in order to give it to FEMA, I guess, or the state to get reimbursements of expenses and things like that. But I don't know. Do you need any of the paperwork from today?
I don't think so.
Okay.
If you want, Andy, I don't know if we have the paperwork, then we have to do the whole entire after action. I'm sure you would love to do that. So up to you. I'll leave that ball in your court. I'll help you if you need it.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you, Bud. Thank you very much. If we have no other questions or comments, oh, Gary, are you saying you do or you don't? Or are you waving? Gary? Oh, okay. All right. All right. Have a great weekend. Enjoy yourselves and enjoy watching the games. Bye, everybody.